will be more of I think I'm playing random.
Against random?
Yeah, against a random player
Mm.
here. And my question is, how do you open up against a random?
Well, I would scout either at the very start or right after the pylon, so then I can react. And I personally would just wall off the low ground with me first pylon because that's what I want against Zerg, and I can still use that against Terran or Protoss. Against Terran, I'll be like, maybe I won't finish the wall off. I'll just have the gateway on one side, the core on the other, the big thick opening in the middle, which I can wall off later, I guess, if Hellions rock up. But otherwise, I'm just gonna leave open. And against Zerg, it's just my normal build. Against Protoss, I'll do my normal Protoss build, but my wall off's at my natural. Um, Maybe I'll be more aggressive to make up for that. Kind of depends. So that's my way of doing it. A lot of Protoss players, if you ask most players on the NA ladder, their answer will be, "Oh, you want to complain for a few minutes, whine for a little while, absolve yourself of all responsibility, and then either do a cannon rush if you're one of the smarter ones, or just play a really bad macro game and lose 5 minutes in and blame random."
There you go.
Yeah, so don't listen to most high level players on the ladder. I'm always like, guys, it's not that fucking hard. Just put your pylon on the low ground. So verse random, pylon low ground for wall off, and pylon scout to confirm. Go into normal build. Obviously, yeah. So in terms of scouting, one of the big questions was one base all ins and that sort of stuff. So here's the thing. Obviously, he did wall you inside his base, so you couldn't do it. But normally, we would like that probe to kind of go and hide behind the natural. We see you'd queued it up to do that, which is lovely, but you couldn't get out there. Now you see though a second depot before anything else. So that means your opponent is doing what we call an inefficient build order, right? So this would be more efficient if he's got 2 more barracks elsewhere proxied or something. Maybe he's just trying to trap you in. He's going to go a command center kind of late. We can't judge it until you get to Masters League, or at least like Diamond 1, Diamond 2. People are just going to do random as shit, terrible build orders. Like, this guy's on 600 minerals, and he's like, cool, let's build a factory. And it's like, well, why aren't you building a command center, mate? Or using your barracks? He's like, no, I'll take a second gas. You've still got 500 minerals. You're still not building SCVs. He's like, yeah, I got to micro my Reaper after your fucking probe. So his build order makes no sense. We do know he's one base, though. So people will say, oh, well, that's why I can't react to scouting. I'm not in a high enough league, my opponents do bad builds, therefore I can't respond. Not true at all. It forces you to actually be more solid as a player, because you have to respond to the generalities. So you need to just put this in a box and say, it's a one-base play for now, and I'll have to scout at some point to see if he ended up doing a delayed expansion, but otherwise, we're going to do my one-base response, right? So you respond as if this is a one-base cheese, as if there could be 3 barracks in the corner of the map. Could be building tanks, Liberators and Marines off one base, and he's going to come and push you in a minute or two, So that's just kind of what you have to do, and it's going to keep you safe and solid as a player. So in terms of that, normally, when would you trigger your one base response? If your probe was behind the natural and you didn't see a command center yet, imagine there's no command center, and you check right now. Is this where you'd start reacting normally, or do you not really have it mapped out?
That's kind of my main problem right now, is that I am kind of perpetually in this state of, oh my god, they're gonna one base all. And so I think around 3:30, if nothing's happened to my probe and I don't see something on the natural, any command center on the natural, I'm like, okay, they're one base soliding me. Let's go, drop our 3 gates, drop our pylons, and just maybe close off the main ramp.
So you're already putting the 2 gateways down here by default as part of your build, right? So that's nothing too new with your build order. So I guess you just build a shield battery at your natural and just make sure you're non-stop building stalkers, right? Probably be it. So basically, non-stop stalkers, 2 shield batteries at natural.
Yep.
And continue to scout. Now, what if we didn't? Okay, so even before this though, this is a game where like our info is being denied. Anytime we see weird stuff like this, it's probably better to do a little bit of scouting to double check for this sort of stuff. So you did send your probe around the bottom right a little bit. But we probably should have sent out another probe or a stalker or something to go just check around and see if there's proxies, right? Up maybe this top area or something. Or, leave a probe on your watchtower to see if anything's coming in, give you a bit of early warning. So in general, you're in a one base scenario, continue to scout is something that's there. And in this case, where we didn't get to see if the natural went down, well, we should have sent our Stalker straight across the map, right? After maybe defend the Reaper, and then as your second Stalker pops, send it across, or send a probe straight across. But we should have sent another unit. So send unit to replace your probe, checking if expand goes down, right? That's always something. Probe.
Yep.
Checking for proxies, so you can always never feel bad about sending a probe out to check for proxies, Stalker poking their natural or looking for proxies, and find what works for you. I'm putting down options. I want you to own your response and be like, nah, I always like to send a second probe to look for proxies. My Stalker pokes across and just checks what's happening at the front of their base, see if anything's coming my way, and then I continue my build behind it. Maybe that's what you find works for you. As long as you make it into like a set play where it's like, you see the information, immediately trigger the response, you're going to be doing pretty well there.
Awesome. So that's a great segue into one of the side questions I had as well. Sometimes you pop a probe behind the natural, and they're smart enough to go down there and say, hey, I'm just going to have my SCV bug this probe the entire time. So should I be taking another probe and saying, okay, he's busy being followed, I'm going to go back home, and just take another probe and go sit behind their natural with that second probe?
Yeah, sure. If that works for you, I would say so, yeah. I mean, the first probe can hang around for the normal expand timing, right? So you could do a little loop-de-loop. Say there was no depot here at this point. You go down to that natural SCV shades, you do a little loop, and you don't need to leave till like a minute 50, a minute 55 when that Reaper's about to pop, right? So you might have already seen a command center down. And that's cool, even if there's an SCV chasing you. But if there isn't one, sure, let's send another probe across. And I think that's probably a good rule. What to do if that's being followed? Send another one. Yeah. Awesome. And obviously you'd need to dodge the Reaper with that. So if you sent another probe out now, you'd kind of queue it to the corner of the map and then behind the natural or something like that, right?
Yep, gotcha.
Cool. So, your wall off in your main sucks balls. So that's something we need to talk about. Whenever you transfer probes or build probes, how are they going to get to your natural?
They'll have to go around the long way.
Yeah. So the thing is, this also just makes it really awkward for you to get behind your mineral line to defend. So that Cybercore should always be down one space. And then even if a Reaper can run through there, I mean, you're kind of walling off the side of your base that's most defended against Reapers anyway. So if you want to do a little Reaper wall, you'll notice there's still an area next to the gateway. You'd probably want to do it on the top left-hand side. And you'd probably want to put the pylon almost like behind your gas and then the gateway up against it next to the thing. But personally, I feel like you don't even need to bother with the wall off. It's not that important in this matchup. It's like, just make sure you leave pathing around the nexus so you can get in and out of your mineral lines. You can get down to and from your base. It's just a little bit extra rally time every time a probe comes out from your main mineral line. Obviously, if it's rallied straight down, it pops on the bottom, it'll be fine. But anytime you're moving workers from your main, you're trying to pull them away from Hellions or anything, you've got very limited mobility. So it's just a bit of an awkward Cybercore placement. Yeah, you can see that probe does pop out in the right position, but it's still just a bit of an awkward one. So that Cybercore should be down one space for sure.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you're doing a blink opening here. So this is something I wouldn't do. Why? I'm playing against a one base opponent. So for me, I would always go Robo or Stargate. Because what the fuck is my opponent doing, right? So maybe you like blink in a normal game. Maybe you still want to do this in this scenario. It really depends how your games go on average. What I would tend to do is go, my opponent's doing some weird shit. I want to scout as quickly as possible. So I want to chrono boost out either an Oracle or an Observer immediately to figure out what is happening in this game, right? Now, if you just do that probe scouting, that Stalker scouting, maybe you don't need that and you feel comfortable with blink, and that's okay. But that's kind of something to just we can have in the back of our head if we're dying at all sorts of crazy all-ins. It's like, well, Twilight is kind of the greediest follow-up. Trap has been going blink a lot, straight into blink off one gate, even when people do proxy raxes, as was Parting against TY yesterday. And the Terrans in Korea are like, you guys are fucking... No, that's not allowed. So the Terrans are just building Hellions and just killing them with Hellion Reaper running in or Hellion drops in the main. Because they're like, whoa, I've delayed my command center a lot. There's a lot of crazy things I could do. You can't just go straight to blink off one gate while chrono boosting probes. Like, that's actually silly. You need to respect what I'm doing. So there's an interesting meta in the pro play right now where Protoss players have been trying to get the blink up, and hell, if you get it, it feels great. But if not, things can be awkward. Now, you went charge here. Do you always open charge, or do you normally go blink?
Yeah. So exactly what you were talking about. When I came back, I'm like, blink is not working for me. I don't have the micro potential for blink. I'm just gonna go charge.
Okay, so it's like too early to go charge. Don't get me wrong, it can help you out, but we're better off going just a robo and getting observers out first, or oracles for harass. I mean, what floats your boat here in terms of maybe we should think a bit more about compositionally what's fun for you to play as well, because I think it's always fun to start with a cool goal in mind and then head towards that.
So the game plan is to go Immortal, Archon, Storm, and charge a lot.
Okay, so you just want to go Archon, charge lot, Immortal Archon, plus Storm added in the later stages. The most generically good army. Okay, cool. So, yeah, okay. So, Pigs build suggestions. Let's just go Robo as standard and get 3 to 4 observers every game. Okay, now obviously if you see some crazy aggression coming, we can stop at 1 observer and start making immortals. Like in this game, we don't know what's happening. Maybe we build an immortal, then we see, oh, he's got a natural and he's macroing up. Cool, now I can go back to building observers. And you can just every game be like, we're going to put an observer on pervert mode over here, or you can just do them across the map if you prefer. Like, bam, bam, bam. Just going to give you more vision of what's going on, right? A lot of Terrans are going to try to drop and harass and fly in libs and stuff. Having those observers out, it's going to tell you what's going on his side of the map, and we can always go into the charge afterwards. So add 2nd and 3rd gate, then Twilight for charge. And that's going to be a much cleaner progression for you. Yeah, that should be sick.
So, 2 of the questions I had on there had to deal with harass, and that's why I really like this game, because you're seeing them getting harassed now by the Hellions, and I think later on they come in for a Widowmine drop, and both of those have kind of been the bane of my existence. The Widowmines especially. I will be macroing, I'll be looking at somewhere, and all of a sudden I just hear a boom, and I'm like, what was that? And like 10 of my probes.
So the level you're at, honestly, putting a cannon in each mineral line is really nice. But we don't want to do that before 5 minutes or 6 minutes, okay? Because it's just too silly. Like, too much money spent on static defense if they do a frontal push. The observers I just talked about is going to make you see it so far ahead of time. And it's also going to train you to look at your minimap. So at the moment, I'm going to take a wild guess and say your minimap awareness sucks balls. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And that's never going to get better at the moment because you don't have any map vision. So there's no reason to look at the minimap. So it's like, if we get these observers out every game, you're just going to see more of the map. You'll still miss stuff, and a Widowmine drop will surprise you sometimes. But we can just try to get better at it over time, right?
Yep.
And that should make you a lot better. So one problem you have is you're not really using like a secondary control group at all. You are control grouping your army, but for some reason all your gateways are on that as well. Is that on purpose?
That is by mistake.
Okay, good. I was like, whoa, I'm about to have my mind blown by a revolutionary mechanical setup here. Or this is just an odd mistake, which we haven't noticed. If you ever get units in your control group, by the way, or buildings, to take those out of there, it's Control-Shift, left-click.
Oh.
And it'll remove all of that unit. So right now, have you got the stream open, by the way?
Yes, I do.
So just looking at me, I'll remove me camera. Obviously, my wireframe's in a different position because of this observer overlay. Oh, I've got my gateways here. Control-Shift, Control-1. Remade my army group minus those gateways. You know what? I want to take my High Templar out of my army, actually. You know what? I can actually Control-Shift those High Templar, Control-1, and then I can Control-Click the High Templar, Control-2. Now, obviously, if we know how to use Control Group Stealing, that's even easier. We can just Control-Click the High Templar and Alt-2 and steal those onto a different key. But Control-Shift is just nice. If you pull all your probes to defend some tank bush and your army's running around, you realize there's 15 probes in your army, you're like, oh, okay, everybody go back to minerals, Control-Shift to deselect the probes and the destructible rocks which are in there, and then remake my army and go back to doing army things, right? So control shift is really nice, because obviously control click selects all of units of a type, and shift, it either adds to selection or it deselects, right? It's that modifier that's add this to my selection or deselect, depending on if it's already in your selection, it removes it. If it's not, it adds it, right? So you combine those two and it's just, oh, remove all of this, you know, from my selection. Likewise, we should be able to go control shift as well. So I've got my army. I want to add my probes to my army. I technically, and I never use this, could go control shift and click on a probe and then shift one, and they're added to my army. I normally wouldn't do that. I would normally grab the probes, put them on my secondary army key, because I'm using them as a meat shield. So I want to micro them separately from my main army. This is pretty rare that we're using our probes as a meat shield, but it happens, especially against stalkers in PvP. Probes are MVPs when they're fighting stalkers and immortals. They're pretty bad against everything else. They're okay against roaches as well, actually. Probe immortal has held off many a roach all in. Cool. So you're going to go for a big old attack. No prism in the main. What a beta attack, man. What's going on? Now, he did have some turrets, but you could have got in the back of that main, actually. So his turrets are really terribly placed, which I like to criticize how people will build a billion turrets. Why is this turret not just on the edge of the map, where it's actually going to kill units flying? But instead, your prism will go past. It'll take like 1 or 2 turret hits, and you can get all the way into the back of the mineral line and warp in zealots there. So I like warping in at the front, unsieging your prism, sending it around the back, and trying to get it in the back and warp in zealots in the main, especially against mech players. This sort of attack you did, brilliant attack. Just a big old zealot immortal Archon attack, really good for busting them before they get too well set up. You also need to remember your observer should have moved forward ahead of that and sieged up there. And then you could have killed these tanks from the low ground with your immortals. So whenever you're trying to break a Terran who's got tanks, always bring that. If you're off racing a Zerg, you always bring an Overseer with your Roach Ravager, right? Everyone remembers 2018 when Maru won every GSL. He almost got eliminated by Lenok, or at least beaten in a match by Lenok, where Lenok was up 100 supply of Roach Ravager and forgot to bring an Overseer and couldn't kill the tanks on the high ground and lost like so much Roach Ravager. And it was like, oh, no, you're meant to beat Maru with this cheesy Roach Ravager build. And it was just these 2 tanks killed an army. It was actually insane. So that's one of those little things. But I think in general, that's always like a cool maneuver to do if you just want to add a bit of cool shit to your build. And then even if your frontal attack whiffs, if you get a Zealot warping in the main, even if it's PvP, even if it's PvZ, that's usually going to kill like 10, 20 drones. And then maybe you get a chance to rebuild an army at home and go again. So I really love the Prism in the main almost as like a standard play.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that there was a way to get in there, because I watched that replay myself and I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely couldn't have gotten in there, but I see the whole...
Yeah, he actually has like the weird turret in the mineral line as well. So you'd need to like, normally that's where you'd come in and siege up. But if once you know that's there, you can go even around that turret and get right to the back behind the eBay. Funnily enough, I think you could actually siege up the natural and warp in zealots just barely from out of range of these turrets. He hasn't put his turrets on the edges. It's really bad. Always put your turrets on the edges, guys, and always zone out these very extreme flanks. Those are where the prisms are going to get in. Whenever I know I'm playing against mech, which I don't know if you knew until you did that attack, I always go for that big attack. I have a 4th base, but I don't really have any probes for it yet. And I always just attack, and I have my army spread, and I attack the natural, I attack the 3rd, and I fly 2 prisms in. 1 around the back of the natural, down, and 1 around the back of the main. And they both try to get into the back of the main. And if even one of those gets sieged up and warps in zealots, mech players can't deal with a zealot warping in the main. They don't have the mobility at that stage. They just don't have enough units. They're too busy at the front.
That's awesome, because one of my questions was kind of, what do you do? So we're here at sort of, I don't know if you call this the mid or late, but my frontal push kind of flaked a little bit, and now I'm kind of like lost. So I'm getting my 3rd up. I'm building my army up again, but I generally kind of a little bit lost as to what to do at this point. because normally I sit back a little bit, get my army going, and by the time I'm fully ready to go again, by the time I get down there, I'm running into either mass battle cruisers just warping into my base or Thors. That doesn't happen this game, but that's one of the instances, or
Yeah,
two of the instances.
it's still a long way away from that step. A long way away. Do you remember you killed a bunch of this guy's SCVs, and like his third wasn't even like there and stuff. He had to like lift his third and shit. You did a good attack. It wasn't game ending. And if we did the prism in the main as well, we should have been able to win the game. Even if an observer came on the high ground, you would have killed those tanks. There would have been maybe one on the ramp still shelling you. You would have killed his whole natural gases, turrets, everything. He would have had to like slowly retake it. So that it's all just about having a next step to your plan. So you're playing against a mech player. What is the plan? What is the next step as a mech player? Well, the thing is, you can simply gear up for another wave. And to be honest, that probably would have worked. If you just stayed there, warped in more units, and then went again as he retook this third. What's he got defending this third right now? There's 4 Vikings. You know, he's got a decent tank count, but they're all at his main and natural. And if he spreads those out, I mean, if you attacked his natural with 13 Zealots right now, you would kill literally every tank in his natural and all of his SCVs. Like, he's actually naked right now. He really can't defend himself. So if we'd attacked again, that would have helped. But as a general rule, you can simply gear up for another wave. The best is to just do everything at once. Okay? So what do I mean by that? I mean, you're playing against a mech player. It's a different sort of game. This guy wants to fap in his corner of the map until he can build battle cruisers, like you pointed out. Okay? So how do we counter that? Go straight to 5 bases. Chrono to 90 probes. Make double forge upgrades. Make 20 gates. I'm exaggerating. 15 gates and 3 robos. Keep making charge Immortal Archon and attacking. Now, obviously, if that's a lot of macro, maybe you spend 2 minutes just exploding in probes, Nexus, and setting up for that. And then you start attacking, kind of off this giant economy, where you can just set up big spread out A moves and don't even look at them. Keep trying to fly speed prisms in the back. While you're setting up for that, obviously, you have to defend run-bys and harass in the meantime. Remember what we talked about. That observers we were talking about is naturally going to give you more vision, but in general, you're playing a mech player. What is a mainstay of mech? All right? It is Hellion run-bys. So as default, have, let's say, 8 stalkers with blink on a defense key, defense control group, something which you really need to work on for your early game defense as well. Different control group for those stalkers that you leave in your main base will really help you out for focus firing medevacs and things like that and microing them. But basically, if you have those on blink, where do they cover? If your main army is pushing down the bottom side of this map to that third and this fourth, denying those bases, killing his third, it's always going to be the Hellion run-bys often up on the top of the map, right? Where these Hellions are coming in from now. So by default, your stalkers are hanging out there. I mean, you're also taking that fourth and that fifth base. So that's going to be that. Now, while he could always come from a different angle, yeah, you still look for map vision. 8 stalkers on a blink defense control group on the opposite flank of the map to your main army. Pylon spotters plus warp-in points all along the edge of the map. The edges. So if you just send a probe, pylon, that's going to spot Hellion run-bys. It's also going to be good warp-in points later. Pylon. So you can send run-bys from those, and it's going to see him running around with these things well ahead of time. Yeah. So because you're just naked right now, running your army around in a blob, and we didn't really expand our probes after that previous attack. Essentially, I said you can just gear up for another attack, and you're actually doing just that. Notice you've left stalkers in your main and natural because they're not on a control group. That. Just the stalkers in the main is all you need. Because your main army could have covered your natural, right? Now, There was a Banshee, so maybe you left them there for a little bit. But at this point, those stalkers, they should just be your defense group. And they should just be up there on the top left. So you've actually got the units. They're just not in the right position. What key do you think you'd use for that? Like maybe 4 or 5?
Yeah, I think that'd work.
All right. If you can write that down in the document, just so you memorize what one, and just make sure you're methodically doing that. And every game, it's like, at the start of the game, your main army defends your natural, right? your 3 stalkers in the main are your drop defense. So it's always that, and then later on that rotates. Cool. So you're gonna go for an all-in attack. It's all in. Why? Because it's 59 pros, 58 SPs. Is it actually all in? Not really. What I don't like here is you have no idea what you're going into. You've got 2 observers. I love that you're hallucinating. What I don't like is that we are basically gearing up for another wave, but we could have gone for this right after the first wave fizzled, or like just stayed here the whole time. And we could have set up our observers, observer, and see everything. We could go, ooh, cool. All his tanks are at the natural. Let's go around and attack the third. There's nothing there. And then maybe when he repositions, we can have 10 zealots waiting on this watchtower, and we can run those into the natural as we start fucking up his third base, right? The problem is you don't have the info for that. And it's easy to not have the info because you didn't have a clear idea that this was your plan, right? So I think by default, you can go up to that crazy economy that I was talking about. Or you can just go straight for the other attack. But either way, even if you go to the crazy economy, you will still go for this sort of attack, and you'll just try to like set up the angle. And on its most fundamental kind of dumbass level of execution, you would just box 1/3 of your army, have it here, 1/3 here, 1/3 here. And then you would attack move and let your units hopefully do stuff. And you'd kind of look around and maybe try to do some Psy Storms or stuff. But honestly, aggressive Psy Storms against mech are very difficult to actually achieve. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you get to a really big army, you never want to. Yeah. Whoa. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, I saw that in my replay. I even saw that during the game. I'm like, what am I doing? Run away.
Yeah. Well, the good thing here is this is not you being an idiot. This is just you thinking you had information when you didn't. You saw what you thought was all the tanks move down to the third base. There was like 6 or 7 tanks. You saw that with the hallucination. That's all you saw. So you're like, his whole army's there. Quick, go to the other side while he's on siege. And it's like, no. The other 2/3 of his army is actually sieged up over there. And that's the worst angle to attack from. But if you literally followed the default mech attack path that I just mentioned, you would have broken him for sure. He actually doesn't have enough wall-offs. He doesn't have any wall-offs. Doesn't have widow mines. Those are the things that would keep him alive against this sort of bust. Really sick wall-offs and widow mines and that sort of thing. High Templar defending Hellions, yeah! Oh, that's... Oh, and then they morph, The High Templar are actually going to win this fight? Oh my god, that's hilarious. Yeah, my nightmare against mech players that always happens is I warp in like 5 High Templar as a Hellion run by comes in on top of them and they're like, ooh, I'll click on those. And I'm like, no! It's so expensive.
The great thing is the other side of the map, I got a couple tanks for free too.
Yeah, he kind of like just ran those across with your army, right? Your army was like retreating and he was like retreating with you. He's like, we're part of the team, guys. The thing is, like, you still always got the chance. If you ever just get Zealot flanking on tanks, you can always just roll an army so efficiently. So, yeah, if we'd done that, it would have been good. Like I said, you can always build a cannon in each mineral line once you get past 5 or 6 minutes. Is not a bad thing to do. Especially if you go to that 90 probe economy, you build, like, 3 cannons at each base just to defend Hellion run-bys. And they'll run in and kill 8 probes. You'll just instantly rebuild 8 probes because you got 5 or 6 bases, right? So I think that's good to have a game plan of the follow-up against mech. But like we said, all you really need is to just win the game earlier. Like your first push was actually really good. Just make sure you remember build a second prism and fly them right in the back. Either together or one down either side. And set up the observer on the front. I mean, setting your observers up on the front actually would have helped you in every fight in this game. Which is awesome. Because, like, I talked about that other fight just then where you attacked at the ramp. Here as well, if the observer was there ahead. So you keep hallucinate scouting. We're swapping you off hallucinate scouting. You're not allowed to hallucinate anymore. As much as I love the hallucinations, I really just want you to get value out of those delicious, delicious observers. You know,
gotcha.
Sieged up outside their base, sieged up outside your base. And, yeah. Yeah, if you got the rest of these SCVs on the natural, man, his economy was toast. So if you had got 1 or 2 more tanks there, that would have been it. Yeah, usually you can break a mech player at that point. Or when they go out to take a third, which is kind of nice. So that was a good little replay, dude.
Thank you. Right. Yeah, I had a little bit of everything.
Let's hop out of that one.
Sure.
Let's refer back to the questions and think about what we're covering. You've noticed your opponents expand to their 4th and 5th bases after an engagement, while you're still just transferring probes to your 3rd. Should you do the same? I feel I'm behind mineral-wise and army supply after our next engagement. Well, what that sounds like is you're doing essentially a 2-base timing, like a 2 and a bit base timing, right?
Yep.
So you should be killing them. So it's not, should I be doing the same? Because that would be an entirely different strategy, right? So you got to think of it in terms of, well, do you want to do a different strategy, or do you want to just kill your opponents better, right? So that's kind of the important thing there. It's like, we can change your style, be less committed to the attack, or we can just kill people better. Either kill people better with our 2 to 2.5 base timing attack, or shift gears and have a later, bigger macro focus. And that's really up to you on how you feel like playing. If you're like, you know what? Yeah, like I'm going to do more harassment as a player. I'm going to try and get better at not just running my army around the blob. And I'm going to just probe up my 3rd nonstop, but I'm going to be running zealots into their like natural and 3rd. And I'm going to try to like keep building prisms and fly them in the back to do zealot harass. And I'm actually going to go straight for storm rather than a charge on a Mortal Archon army. Like, you know, you could shift your gears to that macro focus. So I'm just going to be like, if we did that, a couple of points on how we would do that, you know, straight to 66 probes, storm, forges earlier, forge or forges earlier, and more harassment. Because the problem is when people start playing that macro game, they often think it means just sitting in their corner of the map doing nothing, and that pisses me off no end because I think it's really bad. And once you get to that 66 probes and you build a good army, you still want to be out on the map kind of looking for the engagements, looking to catch their push and fight them at the right time and that sort of stuff. But basically, because you're going later, you still want to be active as a player. So it's more harassment, more run-bys, and more war prisms. And that's a good way to make it an active style where you're still kind of keeping your finger on the pulse of the game and pressuring your opponent and harassing them.
Gotcha.
Cool. So do we have another replay we wanted to look at?
Yeah, I'll get us a really quick one. It's actually one of my favorites. He played this really well, I think.
Whoa! Question 10. Every time you build a building, you click in the bottom right?
Oh,
on the command card?
Okay, so I noticed that. So I watched your stream, and I'm like, wait a minute. He's building his gas as a simulator, and he is not clicking anything. It's just a hotkey. This happens with some of the units too. Like I will, hotkey my robo, put it on 4, and then I realize. So I've been streaming a little bit, and I look at myself, and I'm like, why am I pressing the button?
We should never click in that bottom right ever, basically. I do it sometimes for like the rare upgrades. It's a bad habit, man. You should not be doing that. Yeah, especially not for building any structure. Like the time I'm okay with it, because I'll see a pro gamer do it for like overlord speed. I'm like, okay, this gets clicked once in a game at most. I'm like, it's still bad that they do that, but it's like understandable bad. That is like the game-changing thing. So that's like that time where it's like, you're like, I mean, I know I've been doing push-ups with a weighted vest. I'm like, no, you've had an anvil on your back. And you're like, no, it was a couple pounds, a couple kilos at most. I'm like, no, that's an anvil. Like, that is just such an interruption to your flow as a player. Because especially, like, I get you'd probably still be using shift, right? It's not like you're going click, build gateway, click. Gateway, bottom right. Click. You're using shift. So it's not like you're doing that. Like, I can tell from your level as a player, right? Yeah. But that is still just awkward. That is awkward. Here in this game, by the way, we prioritize typing good luck, have space, fun over getting our pylon down. So our pylon's 5 seconds late. Never prioritize being nice to your opponent. People are like, well, you're not even going to say hello, pig. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm doing my build order. I don't give a fuck. Like, what do you think? It's rude for me to not type to you? But honestly, yeah, that's huge, dude. That's so big. So, that's actually massive. The one thing everyone would see me clicking down there for a lot these days is gather resources. So specifically in my Terran opening, when I'm telling my SCV to run to the correct side of the refinery and mine from that side to make sure I get my 50 gas so my Reaper can start the moment my barracks finishes, I will click it because I don't want to waste an accessible hotkey on it, and it's on X, and I use the right-hand side of the keyboards. I'm not going to reach all the way over to X, and I also don't want to use a good hotkey because it's literally something I only do in the first minute and a half of TV of Terran openings, and that is the only time I use that hotkey, right? So I'm like, I will click in the command card for that. You know, I used to right-click down the bottom for turning auto repair on and off as Terran. Thank God someone in my chat called me out for it and was like, dude, you keep misclicking it when you're getting all in. Like, it's, you know, you can just do Alt plus your repair hotkey to toggle it. And I was like, well, I don't have a repair hotkey. So I was like, all right, I set it. I learned how to do it. I got the muscle memory down. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. I can't believe while defending an all-in, I was trying to right-click on my command card. It's so inefficient. It's so bad, man. So, yeah. So that's actually huge. You got to fix that habit. Like, that's one of those ones, though, where it's probably so deep. I want you to, like, burn it out, you know? Like, pretend you're, like, a medicine man in the Middle Ages and someone's, like, got a bad wound and you're like, well... You just put a hot poker in the iron and then like fucking just burn it. That's all you like, burn that shit off. It's going to be painful. It's going to hurt, but cauterize the wound as quickly as possible. So make sure you go completely cold turkey on that and try to analyze when you do it, especially if you've got those stream VODs. That's the best way to check if you're doing it, but you should become aware of it. So anytime you catch yourself doing it, cancel what you just did in game. Take a deep breath, do it properly, and focus on it like you're really rehearsing on it. You rehearse the way you do it, and after that game, visualize the way you're meant to do it a few times in your head. Practice the repetitions in your head. Imagine yourself clicking it, using the hotkey. And if you do that with like a lot of focus, within a few days you can fix the habit. A little bit less focus, a week or two. If you're really unfocused and you keep breaking the habit and using the clicking in the bottom right, you'll never fix it. And you'll actually just become worse by trying to fix it. So just try to be a little bit disciplined with fixing that one up, and it will jump your ladder play.
Gotcha. That will be my main focus right now.
Awesome. Success rate of a DT drop being higher if a Zerg player opens with no gas.
Yeah, we can talk about that one because it gets into Zerg. So I was kind of thinking of breaking it up, unless you wanted to cover.
No, so with people, it's more about the follow-up DTs does like really fucking well against them. Like because if they don't open with gas, they're not going to go. It means they're not going to not have ling speed early, so they're probably going to go straight to lair and be really greedy. I'm pretty sure what I talked about.
Yeah,
you've got a clip there. I guess I can just listen to the clip really quickly.
Sure.
It's a vibe, quick 3 hatch, that sort of thing. Yeah, I literally said vibe in the first one. I was like, this is probably me talking about vibe. Let me listen to it. What can he all in you with? Even if he sees you building no gateway units or... Okay, yeah, I'm talking about how you can get away with being really greedy. So I'm talking specifically, this is from a few days ago, about how you can do only 1 gateway unit because there's no all-in that can hit you off a gasless opening. So because of that, you can get the fastest possible Twilight and Robo, right? So you can get a really fast Twilight, Robo, Chrono or Prism, and just do disgustingly fast Dark Templar because you can cut every corner you want because the Zerg can't be aggressive. So all to take into account there is the Zerg can't be aggressive. I would say, most people say, how do I respond to 3 hatch before a pool? How do I respond to a gasless opening? I always say just do your normal build. Because most people, when they try to do these adaptations, they fuck everything up. And I go, nah. Technically, if you can go and micro to a depth pressure without messing your build up, that's really good. They don't have ling speed. Force them to build like 15 slow Zerglings and then just leave. Don't even need to kill drones. You just make them build a whole bunch of Zerglings. And you're like, this is what happens when you don't make ling speed. But this is advanced reactions. I don't think it's very high priority. So this is all stuff that comes off the back of it. I would say the main thing is just if you're sometimes afraid and you're building a shield battery for insurance as part of your PvZ opening every game because you're worried about ling floods, and then you see someone with no gas and you still build that shield battery, that's where we go, well, why are we building a shield battery? He's being greedy. You know, that he can't attack us with slow Zerglings. What's he going to do? So that's like just kind of a bit more understanding of the capabilities our opponents have. I'm just going to do a real quick shout out. Sorry. Big thank you, Pazzy, for the sub. No Money gifted 4 subs. And Rue R. Shock with a tier 1 sub. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate everybody's support. We'll get back to interacting with chat a bit later today when coaching's done. In how long do we have? Let's double check so we make sure we cover what we can. We've got about 15, just over 15 minutes left. So, should we talk about this game or talk about some questions? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's look at the game, because this I had no idea what to do.
Cool. So we scout nice and early. He shows us a second barracks, like fucking smart positioning on that second barracks there. Big brain Terran player. So you see 2 barracks on 1 base. Now, anytime you see that depot, you don't even need to see the second barracks. You're going to do the exact same thing every game anyway. Anytime there's a second depot that early, they should be building a command center with that second depot money. There's no reason for them to do that, right? So already, you know they're doing a 1 basey sort of opening. Now, if you still go for your Nexus, that's totally fine. If we were at much higher level, we might be like, ooh, we're going to go fucking core first, we're going to blah, 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 blah. You don't need to do that. As long as we do our verse 1 base adjustment, in a little bit. Now, because you're going to be going robo by default, remember with that change, you're going to get an observer across the map much quicker in future, right? Now, you come up here and you see a second barracks, you see a tech lab. This is a very specific build. It's got to be some sort of marauder push. Do you think you realize that at this point?
No, I had no idea that was coming.
Okay. Because there's a tech lab, so there's only one thing it can do, which is a quick bio push. And he's on 1 base, and you've already seen a second barrack. So, I mean, we look at this build, think about what he could do from here. Latest command center of all time. Factory will open up incredibly late because he's gone 2 barracks on 1 base. Cool. So all you need to do is react nice and quickly. So usually, a lot of the time, you can get away. And if you were still hanging out in gold 3, I would just be like, probe till 3 minutes 30, then react. Right?
Gotcha.
We're getting to a level where it's like, okay, come on. We've seen exactly what's happening. We know there's going to be a quick marauder push. We should be able to deal with that. So, you immediately go for a second gateway. That, by default, should be a robo. And that robo should have already been down. You've had the money for it for a little bit, right? If you build an immortal, it absolutely destroys marauders. Now, what's the other thing? If we know there's a really fast push, shield batteries are king. So, I don't like your second pylon positioning. So, if your second pylon is either closer to your ramp, or preferably just do it on the low ground, I would say, because then we can build shield batteries in front of our natural, is really nice. Even though it's a little exposed there. Obviously, that can get us in trouble if we don't realize something's coming. But I think your scouting's good enough. So as long as we put the second pylon on the low ground, we can basically go, cool, let's chrono stalkers nonstop. Don't chrono warp gate. That's minutes away, right? Whereas you've got someone who's building marauders now. So warp gate's good once we get 3 gateways up. But for now, it's just chrono your gateway units. Plus, don't you normally chrono your first gateway unit? That should be a standard thing in every matchup, right?
Yeah, surprised I didn't do that here. I usually chrono both the warp gate and the gate.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, in terms of generalized responses, I mean, you've cancelled your Nexus and gone 4 gates, right? You go, fuck, there's an all-in, let's fucking go. I would be fine for you to keep the Nexus, right? Just because you didn't make the quick read, but you would cut probes pretty fast, right? So let's talk about, okay, we know not only is this no expansion, but this is some very aggressive stuff. So you go over there, you see 3 depots in the wall. Fuck, he's probably proxying us, right? We don't know what's going on behind the barracks. There could be a proxy, etc., etc. So what is that 1 base response? And this should just be something we pull out of our playbook. So earlier I wrote 330, 1 base reaction, non-stop stalkers, 2 shield batteries, natural, continue to scout. Now, let's change that. First of all, you're going robo first. Non-stop stalkers chronoed. Chrono observer, then immortals, and then get 2 shield batteries at natural, right? So I've changed that here in your document. Now let's say, well, what if it's a 1 base proxy / super fast, super aggressive build? So what are some examples of that? Proxy robo, right? Someone goes and builds a gateway in a robo down at your 4th base or something. In PvP, here in TvT, he's building 3 barracks on 1 base. Oh shit, like what the fuck? This is the fastest possible dirty thing that he can do to us. So what could we do there? Basically, exact same as before. Obviously, we can always cut the observer out, right? Cut observer out. Immortal first to survive. And then you can always squeeze the Observer in if you're like, well, he still hasn't hit. I don't know what's happening. Let's get an Observer, you know? And we would let the natural finish, but we would probably cut probes, right? So we'd say, ooh, let's maybe not probe the natural, right? So if we think about that, assuming we kept building probes initially without cutting, it'd probably be about the time the robo finishes. So let's say about, I'm trying to just think in terms of supply count, what that would be. You've got your Nexus, it's finishing, your robo's halfway done, you're queuing a second stalk, you're probably still building probes up to, let's say about 26 probes. So let's say cut probes at about 26 to focus on unit production and batteries. Only add probes back. And then probably we'd probably get like a second and maybe even a third gateway as well, right? Just for safety. Second gateway. I'd say just second, because if you're chronoing Immortals off 2 Nexus of chrono boosts, you actually spend a lot of money on Immortal production. Yep. So second gateway, and then continue probing once you can squeeze them in, right? Or once you defend the attack. So I think that would have been awesome, because if your robo goes down right when you have money, which should be no later than 2:30, you can usually get your tech structure off a normal opening about 2:20, because it's after you start a Stalker and Warp Gate, right? So that's going to be 100 gas and 175 minerals that get spent right now. Bam, bam. And then check it out. We got enough money for a robo here. So that should be a robo right then. Goes down 2:30. Robo takes about 45 seconds, something like that, to build. Yeah, we've got that pylon already on the low ground. We start a third pylon. We build 2 shield batteries. You'll notice you got a lot of time till he gets over here.
Yeah.
So that Immortal starts building about now. And it's going to pop out about the time he arrives. And you get a shield battery or 2 and 2 Stalkers on the low ground. And if we actually look at this in hindsight, you could have defended this with 2 Stalkers and 1 shield battery. And then gone back to probing and kind of laughed at him a little bit. Because this is really just not that scary an attack. If you had a shield battery healing, 2 Marauders can't really get through that. And if you focus fight, which you did here, you would basically have just killed 1 Marauder, his DPS drastically falls, kill the other Marauder, shield battery's out of energy, but it's just 2 Marines. Kill him, drop another shield battery, Immortals down. Easiest hold of your life. Keep probing, Chrono Boost and Observer to see what the follow-up is. You're probing, building Stalkers when you can, maybe adding a Sentry to get a Guardian Shield. Observer gets over there, sees he's still rallying units, sees no expansion. Oh, fuck. Okay, stop building probes. Just make more units and survive. This guy really is desperately all in. And you'd be completely fine. Cool.
It'd be very interesting to see how this still plays out when the new battery comes out with the
What is the final change on it? It can heal way faster for 10 seconds, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And
it's going up to 1200 or something. I know it's a global. It's just 50 energy, right? It's just a chrono boost worth, or is it 100 now to cast it?
I don't know the details on there.
I did a video on this. I'd need to go back and watch my own video to fucking remember, because I have a terrible memory. But yeah, it's very powerful, but you can only use it once, right? And then there's a massive cooldown on it. So it buys you about 10 seconds with that shield battery, as long as it doesn't get killed, because they could just click the shield battery and kill it. They're still very fragile. It heals like an obscene amount. Like it heals like 2 or 3, I think 3 full Archons worth, or maybe more, maybe 4 full Archons worth of shields. So, and it heals at a faster rate as well, I believe. So it's actually, it's like, if they fight into that, yeah, that shield battery is just obscene. It's so good for that 10, 12 seconds that spell lasts. They've got to just pull away from it normally. So it'll usually be something in these small fights where they go in, you cast it, they pull back, wait for it to run out, and then they go in. So it's like a little time buying mechanism, which is how the Mothership Core Pylon Overcharge used to work as well. You'd cast it, they'd back off, and then the fight would inevitably just be delayed. So against a good player, it's just a delaying mechanism. Cool. So yeah, awesome. We don't need to look at this game anymore because you should have been way ahead. Let the natural finish. What's really good about that is it takes our umming and ahhing out of the question. Some people are like, oh, isn't that greedy if he's 1 base 3xing? I would say maybe technically, but I would rather we be a little greedy and say, cool, well, now I've got the Nexus. I've cut probes at this point. I could focus everything on defense, and I don't need to worry about overreacting because the moment I feel safe, I can chrono probes on 2 Nexus, and I will always get ahead off that, right? So kind of like being a little bit greedy by getting a Nexus up in the face of danger, it actually gives you the comfort to know you can almost focus too much on defending for a little bit, and then you can still bounce back and explode into economy and be ahead. I think the observers are going to help you out a lot. I think by default, having a fast robo go down after that stalker and warp gate in your build order is going to give you so much confidence in so many games. And this has been something, when I'm in a weird game lately, I love just getting that observer out off a quick robo. You know, Zerg opens 13 gas, 12 pool for speedlings. I'm like, is he Bane busting? Is it Ravages? Is he macro in a 3 base? What the fuck is he doing? He's denying me my adepts. And it's like, that observer goes across, see what's happening, gives me so much knowledge of what's going to be happening next in the game.
That's awesome.
We are basically almost out of time, so let's round up. What are the most important things for us to talk about before we finish? Let's review what we've talked about, look through the questions, see if there's anything that's kind of nice that we should talk about.
There is one last thing. I don't think I wrote the question on there, but I probably should have. Magfield accelerator on...
you did. You wrote this down. Yeah. Sorry, I read this before. I forgot to answer it. Hellion Cyclone Kiting. Okay, so that's a really good question. So basically what they're doing with that is do you like boxing or fighting at all?
Oh, I love that. It's fun.
Cool. I recently went and watched a whole bunch of highlights of like Mike Tyson, and basically you're Mike Tyson and everyone else is like 1.5 feet taller than you, and they've got a lot longer reach, and you go, this isn't fair. These Hellions and Cycles just hit me, run away. This sucks. But then you fucking knock them out and you realize they're soft as shit compared to you. So that's Hellion Cyclone. Anything you make is actually Mike Tyson level against those fragile little fucker units, right? If we let them just jab us in the face, and we chase them and they jab us in the face and they jab us and we're like, oh. The moment we flank them, hit them their economy, or get in their mineral lines, or they have to stand and fight, they are just not good units, right? For their cost and how long it takes to get them out of the tech lab factories. So what you need to remember is, number 1, charge zealots, flanking them, or even A-moving if they're slow to react, if they're even a little slow to react, ruins Cyclones. Now, don't get me wrong, if they've got a lot of Blue Flame Hellions in there as well, obviously the charge zealots on there are not going to work. Normally what I see is, though, people start with mostly Cyclones, and they kind of just pick off a few units, and they just take enough good trades, and then the Protoss is just kind of like behind and doesn't have enough stuff, okay? So that can work. Now, there's really fancy Warp Prism Micro to pick up and break Cyclone lock-ons. Let's not even talk about that. That's very fancy. There is blinking on top of them to just jump on top and ruin the Cyclones. Focus fire the Cyclones, not the Hellions, of course. So blink is one way to ruin the Cyclones. Just kind of blink on top of them. Jump on top. And the whole idea is anytime you can jump on top, it's good. If you can flank or sandwich with a second Zealot squad, it's amazing. So a lot of this, and you'll find it in your replay. Do you have a replay of this, by the way, that we can very quickly show an example of? Please load that up so we can just show 1 or 2 fights, because usually it's them getting out of control. And we're like, man, well, how do I win this fight? It's like, well, you have like a bunch of zealots fighting a giant Cyclone Hellion army. You fucked up at that point, right? But there's usually many fights leading up to that where it's like, oh no, we could have flanked that, or we could have blinked on that, or we could have done some zealot run-bys, and he would have had to pull home, and he wouldn't have been able to keep harassing and picking away at us. So jump on top. Basically, they want to have their whole army in one blob, usually. One blob. Pick off some units, run back. Re-engage, pick off units, run back. But what can we do to stop that? Zealot run-bys. Giant prism warp-ins in the main. 3-pronged A moves into their economy. And they'll kill one section of your zealots that goes in. Doesn't matter? Not at all. Because the other ones will start ruining their SCVs. And if you get your economy to a big enough stage, you'll really just get out of control. And that's what we talked about earlier, where once you realize you're against a mech player, If you get up to 5 bases and a ton of gateways, you've just got this ability to keep going. So yeah, he's doing straight to Cyclones. It's a very common way of doing it. And, you know, one-on-one, a Cyclone looks amazing versus like a Stalker or something. But yeah, if you've got Blink or anything, you could just absolutely dick them. So good job pulling back. We need to get the fuck behind that Nexus right now with these Stalkers and Sentries right here. You've seen what it is. You've gone, oh shit, you managed to pull back and break the lock on, which is good. So you need to get behind the probe line. Why? You want them to lock on probes right now. You want your Stalkers to get time to regen shields. Now you've actually got charge on the way, which is going to be really good. And you desperately need to just warp in 3 Stalkers on this high ground, where they're not just going to die the moment. Or you don't even have a pylon on the low ground. I guess you could warp in on the low ground if you wanted to. And once you've got 5 Stalkers here, you can just, when he runs forward, just click on a Cyclone. You'll kill it as it locks on. Then you can pull back. The other one damages or kills 1 Stalker. And then you run forwards. He locks on. You get a volley off. You pull back. He gets like 2 ticks off on his attack. Damages a Stalker. You run forward again. So run back, break the lock, run forward, focus fire. Run back, run forward. In small skirmishes, it's technical, but that's it. So small skirmishes. What are we doing? Run forward. Focus the Cyclone. Sorry, chat. Apologies. I'll show this one more time for them while I write the notes. So after the first fight, which was fine, the Stalkers took damage. They broke the lock on. They needed to run back here. And then the Cyclones, if they chase, if he doesn't manually micro, he'll auto lock on probes. Waste a lock on, killing 2 probes, and then your Stalkers can come forward with the 3 more that warp in. Instead, we let him kill our 2 Stalkers, and that's dangerous. Because now he gets to kill a sentry. Our next Stalkers are warping in very slow. Now we're already feeling a bit panicked and a bit disturbed. We've stopped probing, we've stopped building other units, and we're a little bit freaked out about, in general, what's happening. Meanwhile, we should have killed the only 2 units he has on the map, and going, nah, fuck you. Taking a 3rd, taking a 4th base maybe even, and getting some observers out, just getting ready for that next little step in the game. So
Perfect.
that would have been huge. Run forward, focus the Cyclones. Yep. Pull back to break lock-ons. After lock-on breaks, or if they chase too aggressively, turn and focus fire, rinse and repeat. So you can do that to buy a shitload of time. And if it feels like those Cyclones are rallying across like almost too fast for you to handle, well, like just keep chrono boosting your gates, building pylons, warping in units, and just keep trying to get on top of them. And notice here you're building shield batteries. So if we plug up defensively and start trying to cover our head up against someone with superior reach, yeah, maybe we can wait for the perfect counter-strike. But what's better is if we just go forward and stand on the high ground. If he runs up that ramp, you kill 2 Cyclones before he even realizes, oh, fuck, and he runs away. So high ground is amazing.
Gotcha.
Hold the high ground. Yeah. So yeah, they kind of want us to turtle up here and get afraid. Where's our 3rd? You know, get a warp prism. What's he got defending his base? 2 Marines in a bunker, nothing in the main. It's just got 2 factories. And like I said, really fragile army. He really needs to just lock on, run away, lock on, run away, lock on, run away. Even there, does a bit of damage. Doesn't really do anything, but you got to chase him. Yeah. There we go. And the thing is, it's kind of like, wait, why do we have so few units? You know, even if we just had 8 Stalkers. And even then, you're still actually taking better trades than him. Even here, not really being well prepared for this. If you had Blink, you could have just blinked on that with like 8 Stalkers and been like, lol, you've got charge. So what would I be doing with my charge zealots is I would actually, like I said, get a prism down there, warp in 4 zealots. I'd also have some zealots ready there. And like, I'd be chronoing my probes at the 3rd. If he's pushing the front with the Cyclones really aggressively, okay, warp in at home. But the moment you get zealots in his mineral line and move even 2 or 3 zealots into his natural, he's like, oh, fuck. And notice, remember, what does he want to do? Remember what I said? He wants his whole army in one blob, dictating the pace of the game aggressively, and just punching you, pulling back, punching you, pulling back, punching you, pulling back. The moment you create a zealot in a mineral line, 4 zealots in the main, or a warp in there, he's kind of fucked. Now, look at this fight. You might be like, man, the Hellions and Cyclones just beat the zealots. They actually don't. If you're doing this while you're also attacking anywhere else, say the zealots in a mineral line, you're like, oh, you're going to run away from the zealots and not actually protect your workers? So individually, that trade is efficient, right? Of him kiting the zealots. But if we were actually hitting his mineral line in any way or flanking that army, if Zealots trapped him from kiting, you would kill all Italian Cyclone, and the real fragile nature of this army of his would be revealed. So, yeah, shut down the first wave, still take a third, still take a fourth, get your run-bys, your warp prisms, and trip your opponent over and punch him in the face if you can, is a good way to do it. That's one of those styles. If you let them do what they want, it feels unfair. It's the same thing people complain about when they play against Blink. If Blink is set up well and microed well and they have enough units, no Blink Stalkers die, it seems unfair. If there's enough units to shut down it initially, Blink Stalker attacks and all-ins kind of look pathetic. So it's the same sort of dynamic where, because it's so flexible, long-range, and mobile, this composition, when it's winning, it can win with barely taking any losses, and it seems unfair. But once we understand just how fragile it is and the fact that, the moment we take the fight to their mineral lines, they just can't really cover them, that's when we get in control of the game.
Awesome.
Sick as,
Perfect,
man.
yeah. Yeah, dude. I wanted to say before I head out, I went back and looked at all of the coaching videos we had from them, and it really held up after 2 years. I mean, I learned a whole bunch of brand new stuff, so definitely appreciate these.
That's awesome, man. Glad to hear that. That's really, really cool. I really like, there's a lot of fundamentals in StarCraft, so it's nice to know that, and I really feel like part of what I do want to achieve is giving you a resource you can always go back to whenever you're like airy-fairy on the ladder and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. You can always go back and read some of these notes and hopefully get something to work on, right? Just some direction to go, oh, that's some shit I know if I focus on it, I will get a bit better at this game, right? So hopefully this session holds up as well, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, appreciate it. You have a great day.
You too, man. Hit me up if you ever want to set up another. Other than that, talk to you in chat, dude.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
Good night, man. Cool. So that was like